haven't really studied the Mendes brothers all that much, but when I think of them, I think of beautiful side-to-side guard passing, barambolos, and using the guillotine to help pass the guard. And their young phenom student, Cole Abate, speaks on this as well.
Professor Hoffa was one of those people. Like you see him, like he did a lot of like anaconda chokes, guillotines, and like back takes in his ADCC runs.
And Cole himself became the youngest person to ever win the ADCC trials at the age of 16. And now he goes into ADCC trying to become the youngest person to ever take home gold. So I figured now was a great time to kind of dip my toe in the world of AOJ and give my opinion on what we can expect from Cole Abate at ADCC. And I'll have an update on the channel at the end of the video, so be sure to stay tuned and let's dive in. So the biggest takeaway I had from watching the Mendes brothers pass the guard is that they have consequences for where their opponents decide to put their frames. So if someone's grabbing their foot, it makes it hard for them to do the side-to-side passing. But it also puts their opponent on their left hip, which is a good scenario for a leg drag. And you can see Rafael Mendes try this leg drag when his opponent is using their hand to hold his foot. If they're holding your foot, it also gives you a great opportunity to use a scoop grip, which is something we'll come back to later in the video. But you'll see his opponent has to let go of his foot if he wants to address that scoop grip. And if there's no longer a grip on the foot, there's nothing stopping us from doing that side-to-side passing that they're famous for. And you see Cole Abate using this strategy as well, where as soon as there's no longer a grip on his foot, Cole starts to pummel his feet and work that side-to-side passing. And off that side-to-side passing, their opponents often high leg to retain their guard. And off that high leg, you can go back to the leg drag. And the other thing it looks like they like to set up using this side-to-side passing is this scoop grip. And if you have a scoop grip on one side and they're reaching for your leg on the other side, it gives you a great opportunity to go double scoop grips and start working your double underpass. And Hoffa used this setup a couple times in ADCC, and we saw Cole pin his opponent's arm while he used the double underpass to work his way to north-south. And I think this is a super effective way to pass the guard, and we just saw Josh Cisneros use it against Keith Krikorian over and over again, where Josh would use his leg to chop down Keith's frame and then transfer the shin pin to his other leg to pass the guard into a very good attacking position. And I think this is one of the favorite no-gi passes of Rafael Mendes. But as he's working that side-to-side passing, Hoffa is also looking for opportunities to shoot in an underhook. And if he loses that underhook battle, that's when the guillotine and anaconda chokes come into play. And you can see Cole using that same strategy, where he tries to use side-to-side movement to set up his underhook. But his opponent does a great job framing, and instead of backing out and resetting, Cole uses it as an opportunity to connect his hands and use the thread of the front headlock to ultimately pass the guard. Another very popular pass, especially with the gi, is the long step. And you can see Cole trying to use the long step here, no gi, and he actually used it to successfully pass the very tricky guard of John Calistine. And it's something we saw Felipe Pena try against Gordon Ryan as well. But I think the true value of the long step no gi is using it to set up things like that double underpass, especially if your opponent feels like they can't pop their head out, so they instead try to invert underneath. I think this is a great opportunity to look for those double scoop grips. And we saw Josh Cisneros use this as well, as Keith was finishing his inversion to recover from north-south. And Josh used this opportunity to shoot in those two scoop grips and work his double underpassing. So I know I just kind of threw a lot of information at you, but the main kind of jiu-jitsu theory that I wanted to get across, that I think the Mendes brothers do really well, is to have a few positions that you really like to get to, like the leg drag or the double underpass, and then have a few ways of getting there depending on how your partner decides to grip. So often in jiu-jitsu, we stress the idea of breaking grips. And if someone grabs your ankle, you should break that grip. If someone grabs your sleeve, break the grip. If someone even looks at your collar, break the grip. But Jordan talks about this on his most recent podcast, how you only need to break the grip if it's preventing you from doing your technique. And if my technique is a double underpass and you're grabbing my ankle, I don't need to break your grip. I'm just going to take a scoop grip and get me closer to my double underpass. If you don't take a grip, then I'm going to use side-to-side movement and get to my double underpass. So I think the biggest takeaway I got from studying AOJ guard passing is to first try to exploit a grip before trying to break it. Now, switching gears a little bit, I wanted to talk about leg locks because they seem to be a big part of Cole's game, but not in the way you might think. Now, we've talked about on this channel before how if your head is on the outside of your opponent's legs when you're performing your entry, it means that their foot is going to be on your bottom shoulder. So now you're going to have to bring it to your top shoulder before you can start attacking a heel hook. So an inside spin entry is preferred over an outside spin entry because if your head goes in between your opponent's legs, that means when you complete the entry, the foot is going to be on your top shoulder already, giving you the ability to go straight into the heel hook. Now, Rafael Mendes was threatening inside spins to expose the heel way back in the day. But if he were to complete the inside spin, he transitioned to a toe hold on the secondary leg instead of attacking a heel hook on the primary leg. Now, probably the most popular form of inside spin right now is off of the false reap, and Cole uses the false reap quite a bit. You can see as Gio's spinning the leg, Cole frees his knee, and then as Gio comes up on top, Cole throws in that false reap. And then once he enters into the false reap, he has some pretty clever ways of de-stickifying this annoying hook. But there has also been many instances of Cole just kind of hanging out in this false reap position, which has led to some kind of scary scenarios. And when he does complete the entry, I wasn't able to find a clip of him actually finishing a heel hook. And against high-level people, you're going to have very good breaking mechanics. And you can see the heel is more towards Cole's elbow as opposed to his wrist, making it much easier for his opponent to slip their heel. And again, Cole is really good at off-balancing his opponent, but I just think his breaking mechanics aren't the best, and you can see Gio's foot already starting to slide out. And it's easy to forget sometimes, but Cole is only 17 years old, and he's winning pretty much every tournament there is.
Oh, God, help us!
So it makes sense that his straight ankle lock finishes would be really good because he spends a lot of time using those instead of heel hooks. And the same thing with Hoffa back in the day. Granted, he's going against a Meow brother, so it's very hard to finish them with a leg lock to begin with, but at the same time, Hoffa catches the heel down by his elbow, drastically reducing the breaking pressure and giving his opponent a greater ability to slip their heel. So you see Cole using things like the leg lace and trying to do a toe hold off of this entanglement. And I really haven't seen this work at the highest levels, and especially not against someone as strong and flexible as Gio. But I still think Cole uses leg locks as effectively, if not more effectively, than a lot of people. And here's how.
Did a lot of like counter wrestling, counter submissions in his fights, and you can kind of look back and see that if you go and study them.
Rafael Mendes was extremely effective at using leg entanglements to set up his wrestling and reversals, and Cole does the exact same thing. Again, you can see the initial catch on his opponent's heel is in his elbow, and I'm not saying this won't finish people because we just saw BJJ get the tap in one championship using very similar breaking mechanics. But what I am saying is that people in jiu-jitsu today are freaking good, and they're very comfortable in these leg entanglements. So even if you have really good breaking mechanics and switch to the strongest form of grip, you still might not get them to tap. But after almost every leg entanglement, it looks like Cole is ready to wrestle up right away. And you can see here, he's not even really trying for a heel hook. His intention is to come up on top. And a lot of times you're going to have control over your opponent's leg. So if you just keep their foot from touching the ground, you're going to have a good chance of winning the battle of top position. And just as Hoffa goes for toe holds, so does Cole. Cole's strategy is to use these leg entanglements to come up on top and in a tight match, make sure he gets his points. And people who are leg lock specialists sometimes get themselves in trouble by trying too hard to chase the submission. But this is not Cole. Cole's priority is to make sure he gets on top. But don't get it twisted, this does not mean that Cole is not very comfortable in these leg entanglements. We just saw him earlier slip his knee just out of Gio's control, and we often see him run initially, but then come back and engage the legs against very talented leg lockers, or even try to counter with a quick back take. And another thing Hoffa liked to do a lot was to use the berimbolo to set up his wrestling. But it can be a bit risky, and there were a few times his opponent countered and got him in very deep heel hook situations. And I really don't know anything about berimbolos. There's been quite a few of you that have requested a video about him and their application in no-gi jiu-jitsu, and I'm kind of holding off on making that video till I'm more educated about them. But you can see Cole doing things like pummeling his feet both to the outside, making it difficult for his opponent to counter these berimbolos with leg locks. Now, when we're talking about what we can expect from Cole Abate at ADCC, I think we should look at his finals match with Keith Krikorian in the trials. And I think Cole's general strategy is going to be to avoid wrestling from the feet, and when he has to, just kind of shoot a haphazard takedown, hold on for about 3 seconds before using that to sit to guard so he doesn't get penalized, which is pretty much the same thing Gordon did against BJJ. But then from his guard, Cole likes to use these leg entanglements to come up on top, get his 2 points for the reversal, but also get very deep on a guard pass. And part of the reason this is so impressive is because this is Keith's game. So many times we've seen Keith use leg entanglements to come up on top and get very deep into guard passing situations. And the fact that Cole was able to do the same thing to him is very impressive. And towards the end of the match, Cole's trying to finish this armbar. And as people slide out of armbars or triangles, they're often going to use this as an opportunity to attack their opponent's legs, as we see Gary Tonin demonstrating here, who's also in the same division as Cole and is always looking great in his future kimonos rash guards and putting on a show for the crowd. But as Keith sits for the leg, Cole pushes them away and they scramble for top position. And granted, it's the end of the match and Cole's already up 8-0, but the point is that Cole is very good at making sure he ends up on top, and he's very good at playing the game. So while I think it's going to be hard for Cole to submit some of the people in his division, I also think he's a very difficult person to submit, and I think in close matches with his experience and amazing technique and coaching, I think he definitely has the ability to make some noise at ADCC. So kind of some big news that I wanted to share with you all that's going on in my personal life is that despite Danaher's advice, I'm getting married in a couple weeks, which is really exciting for me personally. And the next few weeks are going to be a lot of spending time with family coming into town, getting last minute things done, and going on a little trip we have planned afterwards. And the videos I make for YouTube require a lot of time and focus. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that the next month or so, I'm probably going to be a bit inconsistent with my video uploads. And I realize the timing of this is just not ideal with ADCC right around the corner, but it is what it is. And I'm definitely going to do ADCC videos and probably a lot of them, but it just might take me a little more time. So I just wanted to share that with you all so you're not caught off guard if you don't see a video from me on Tuesday. So again, thank you all for the support, and we'll see you in the next video.